Welcome to Fab Conversations. I am Sonu Bhasin, and Fab is Families and Business. Today, I have a guest on Fab is known in the industry as a serial entrepreneur. Atul Nishar had set up and then sold his stake in well known companies like Aptech and Hexaware Technologies. But his entrepreneurial journey had started when he was in class 4, way back. And in our conversation today with Atul, I do hope that he will retell us that story. So, welcome Atul, and I'm delighted that you could be here with us today. I do know that you're in the middle of a small holiday, and therefore I do appreciate this more. And I do look forward to the conversation with you again.
Thank you so much, Sonu. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. So let's get straight into the conversation and let's go straight back into time when you were in class 4. You used to go to your Nana's house for your summer holidays, and you say that you learned your first lesson in business there. How did your Nana teach you about business and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so my Nana had a lot of agricultural land, and they're making different fruits like chicus, mangoes, and other agricultural products. So basically, he was agriculturist, and so one fine day he calls me and my cousin, my mama's son, similar age, and he says that now you have to go to Vapi station. That's where they live. Vapi station, outside that there were all the hawkers used to sit there and sell the fruits. And typically people who pass by, it was like a mini market. And we carried the boxes of chikus, and we had to sit. My cousin sat somewhere else, I sat somewhere else, and that's the first time ever. And he told me that, look, these are so many dozens of chikus. You have to bring X amount of money. Now you sell the way you want, whatever price you want. It doesn't matter to me. But total should come to that much. And then I calculated, it means what per dozen. And, people, in those days used to bargain. You can't have fixed price, then they will be very disappointed. So, and if someone buys more, you may have to give one chiku free, like the very typical way is done in India. And so I calculated all that. And I could sell it and get more money than what he had told me to. So that is the first time I got a lesson in selling, in understanding what profit is. And it was exciting, actually. So it was a good experience sitting with other vendors there and watching them, what they did. And since then, I formed the habit of watching how people were selling, what they were doing, how they were doing business. So since my childhood, I used to discuss with all my relatives who are in business, what they were doing, how they were doing. So that was, got that interest in business from an early age.
Yeah, which is such a fascinating story. And today when people talk about strategy and they talk about all these marketing and all of that, people actually forget that the real business happens at the selling point. If you can sell a product, you are a good marketer, you're a good business person. And if you can't sell a product, no matter how good the product is, if you can't sell it, what good is that product? So if you learned that lesson in selling and the importance of selling, I just wish that many more people who pass out of MBAs now actually do understand the value and the benefit of learning how to sell. So then, Atul, you actually continued with this lesson in business and entrepreneurship, because when you were a little older, your summer holidays and other holidays you used to spend in your family shop. And you had
Yes.
said that your friends were spending holidays in exotic locations and having a good time, whereas you were in that shop. It must have rankled at that time as a youngster, but looking back,
Not really. I mean, I enjoyed. I
you,
used to sit at the shop and learn different aspects of business, and it was left to me. Then, in those early days, then computerization was not there. We used to actually count the stock and value it, every year, each Diwali. So it was all left to me at
Yeah.
a young age. And I would do the accounts as to what happened during the year. And but that was a very interesting aspect, going on watching customers, what they did, what they bought, why they bought, their thinking. That I think that was a lot of learning.
Yeah.
If you enjoy what you do, then you don't regret that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So
you
later on, when I started doing better and better in business, and the time came when a lot of people were saying that, well, you've done so well. Then many of the friends, I told them, while you were watching movies, you were holidaying, I was working. So, it matters that at a young age you develop interest.
yeah.
And selling mainly is understanding customers' mindset. And that is what really mattered, I think.
Yeah. So you actually had your experience with customer and customer satisfaction at the Vapi station and then in your
And the
shop,
shop in Mumbai, yes.
Mumbai. And so, what are some of the lessons or customer insights that you gained from these experiences that have actually stayed with you?
I think the very, very important thing is to do business with certain value system. Customer will keep coming back to you again and again. If you've been honest with the customer, you're providing value to the customer, no matter which business. I think providing value, being honest with them, and telling the truth, what you're doing, is very, very important.
Yeah.
I think that, see, one were to talk about certain nuances of a particular business. Say, if I were to talk of computer education or software or any business that I've run, then it may not necessarily apply to every other business. But when I say that if you run a business with honesty and genuinely wanting customer to be happy, no matter what, the customer should be happy at the end. I think that principle will help no matter which business it is.
Yeah.
That's very, very important.
Yeah.
I have not hesitated even in the software business when I was running Hexaware very actively. When a customer was not happy about something, I have not hesitated in giving back the credit of the invoice already raised without any hesitation, no matter what the amount it is. And we always used to have very, very high customer satisfaction.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say Hexaware is one of rare companies. We never had a litigation.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Because we were willing to accommodate the customer and make sure do whatever necessary to make the customer happy. I think this principle will be valid across all businesses.
Yeah. Yeah, the focus on the customer and the fact that you do need to treat the customer, you do need to trust the customer and not make the customer feel like a criminal for pointing out any problems that they have had with your product or your service. Yeah. So you did talk about your software business and the other business that you then ran. So tell us about how did you come about setting up, and was Aptech your first large business that you set up?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So tell us the Aptech story, and then that led to the Hexaware technology story.
Well, that's computer education was, 84, just being talked about computers. And we had a new Prime Minister, Rajiv Gandhi. He was being called a computer boy. And since there was so much talk about computer, and I was not very keen on running my practice as a chartered accountant. I am a qualified chartered accountant. I did practice for a short while. And then I thought, why not do something in computers? So initially software, I didn't have any exposure, so I didn't think of software initially. Hardware, I saw heavy imports and the entire business was import dependent. And when at that time we were very short of foreign exchange in India. And at a time when foreign exchange is scarce, India was in heavy deficit financing, current account deficit rather. So I thought this import-based business is not going with the national trend for future. And that is when I thought of computer education, that I should set up a computer education company. And of course, it grew just amazingly. From one center, we went on increasing. We also had franchisees, and we reached a level of 1,500 plus centers across 50 countries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that became a global network. That was the largest network. In 1990, I thought, by that time we were, established in computer education. And that is where I thought, why not look at a software business?
Yeah.
We had the necessary, by then, understanding of IT industry, IT business. And that is where the software business came. And it was most important, trust in our Indian talent and excitement about going to Western countries with our talent and wanting to do projects for large corporates. I tell you the thrill we used to get, and personally I used to get, you are in US, you are in New York, you go to a large corporate and you discuss a project and we start working for them. It was, giving me such a sense of pride that from India, I'm going there to a highly developed country, and we're able to, do a consulting project, execute a very important project for that company. So it was the excitement.
Yeah.
I frankly didn't think of any valuation for any business of mine.
Yeah.
There was no thought that, one day it will value a lot and I will make a lot of money. That was not really important at that age. What was important was just feeling good and enjoy what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it was like a euphoria, what sense of excitement, in a Western land, go there, UK, other countries. So basically, we did do domestic projects. We focused on exports, doing projects for mainly US, followed by Europe.
Yeah.
In a very small way, Singapore.
Yeah. 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 So, you know what? You've also sold off your stake in the companies that you've set up, which is very difficult for a founder to do, as I have found in my many conversations with many founders. Can you talk to us about the thought process that went in your mind, that you, as the founder or the creator of the business, is letting go of some part of it? Did you feel a sense of emptiness after that? How did you, so take us through that, because I think this is one area that a lot of promoters could learn from you, how not to get attached to a business and to let it free. So do talk to us about that, please.
See, but of course, it's not easy to sell a business in terms of emotional, impact it has on oneself. I'm not denying that at all. But if I were to first go beyond that in a broad philosophical level, I always think I have one life. do I have to keep doing the same thing rest of my life? Or I can do different things in the same life.
Right.
I don't know what will happen after this life. Whether there are multiple lives or not, I don't know. And even if there is, I'm not going to have memory of what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So the life that I've got, why not do multiple things and not do only one thing?
Right.
Obviously, in life, one will have failures, one will have successes, one will enjoy certain things, one will be unhappy with certain things. We go through all that cycle. But when I'm an entrepreneur, I would want to do run different enterprises, different businesses, different areas, and really feel good about that. And I have to learn. It's not that when you move from one business to the other, there's a hell of a lot of learning involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I did computer education and then you move to software, though it is IT, it's a very different business, dramatically different business.
Right.
So you have to learn that.
Yeah.
And I'm not an engineer, I'm a chartered accountant. So I'm not a programmer or a systems analyst. So I think that learning at each stage is something which is very important,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so I would say that was the motive. Now, in terms of selling AppTech,
Yeah.
computer education, because that time I wanted to focus on a software business. And that was 2001. For various reasons, I thought, I have not done well enough in my software business, which is huge opportunity. And computer education, I'm done with it. We achieved whatever was there. And I thought the time has come. And even in the global downturn, when I saw two globally competitive businesses, I thought it's better to focus on one rather than both.
Right. Right.
And that is when I chose to exit AppTech.
Yeah.
And focus only on Hexaware.
Right.
Since that time, Hexaware was there, and I did get very much involved. I didn't feel much of sense of emptiness, though I felt I did feel emotionally disturbed that I loved AppTech. I loved the employees who had worked with me for a long, long time, and parting with them was difficult. But I thought that was the way to move forward. If I have to do justice to software business, I had to do that.
Yeah.
Because computer education involves a lot of administration.
Right.
And it does take a lot of time.
Right. Right.
So I moved my entire focus to running Hexaware. And that did pay off in terms of the growth that we witnessed in Hexaware.
Yeah.
2002, we were a $50 million revenue. 2007, exactly in 5 years, we grew 5 times to 252 million revenue.
Yeah.
So definitely it paid off. All the efforts were justified. Our margins went up dramatically. We could attract who's who among the customers. And we reached a level that we were servicing over 50 Fortune 500 companies as our clients.
Yeah.
So that was going very, very well. And that continued to grow at every stage, through downturn, through upturn, till 2013, when I sold my stake in Hexaware.
Right.
Now, this was a tough one, very, very tough one. Because then this was the main business. I'd focused day and night into it. 23 years had passed, and we were doing so well. And we had thousands and thousands of employees across 30 countries. And I wanted to again do something else.
Yeah.
Also spend more time with family, with friends,
Yeah.
see more places in the world. By
Yeah.
that time, I had stamps of 40, 45 countries which I had not seen. I'd only gone for meetings.
Right.
So
Right.
I thought the time has come, all those countries, I just don't collect stamp
Yeah.
of the immigration, but I also actually go and see and experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was the decision. It did create emptiness, and that was a tougher one. Yes, on sale when when you get a very big check, four-figure check, normally one would be excited. In my case, it was a feeling of sadness and not really, I didn't feel very happy about it at the end.
Yeah.
So, this, um, but what did also help was that the, private equity fund Baring, whom I sold my stake, they requested me to continue on the board as chairman.
Yeah.
And at the board level, at least I was active.
Yeah.
I chaired the shareholders meeting, board meetings, strategy committee meeting,
Yeah.
shareholders committee meeting, and various committees. So in that sense, I remained involved
Yeah.
without having to be day to day involved in the company.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I was very familiar with the company business, so it did help. And I'm glad that I was able to contribute on an ongoing basis to Hexaware, not as promoter, but at least as chairman.
Yeah.
And later on, in last 6-7 months, I stepped down as chairman. I was by the board made me chairman emeritus.
Yeah.
And you can see the result at Hexaware that the company's crossed valuation of $3 billion.
Yeah.
So definitely it was a journey in that sense that continued. And but yes, moving on does create an impact. So what I did was created a family office
Right.
in a very organized manner.
Right.
I treated it as a business
Yeah.
and built a team there
Yeah.
and took investing as a very serious activity,
Yeah.
not as a side activity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And investing in equity, investing in startups, dealing with youngsters, that's really, really, it gives a new energy.
It keeps you young. It keeps you
Yes.
connected with it. So yeah, I do want to talk to you about family office because you're a big votary of family offices. But I do want to talk to you a little about entrepreneurship in India and entrepreneurs in India. And in our conversations earlier, you have said that one of the reasons, according to you, that entrepreneurship wasn't such a big deal in India was because we treated failure as a taboo. We kind of looked at failure and said, "ये तो मतलब बिल्कुल ही खत्म हो गया." But over a period of time, failure now is worn as a badge of honor by many entrepreneurs. So, talk to us about how and why, as you've seen it, you've observed it in the industry. How have we as Indians been able to change our attitude towards failure? And what is the impact of this change of attitude on entrepreneurship in India in general?
See, uh, in India, of course, while in some cases promoters may not have been honest, and there may be some valid reasons for having that stigma attached to people who don't succeed and who fail in the business. It seems almost like promoter took away the money.
Yeah.
And that's why businesses failed. So while I'm not saying it was entirely wrong, there may have been many cases that made people form that view based on integrity of certain individuals. But having that stigma on the failure stopped young people from entering business, from starting a new enterprise. Because when elders tell a youngster that, well, there you will not succeed, you know. So that fear of failure became very strong.
Yeah.
And I would not say it's totally gone away, but in recent years, the startups and the willingness of investors to support youngsters and willingness to accept failure, the investors who fund these companies are willing to accept that failure. And they do calculate that, okay, if we fund 10 ventures, 10 startups, and if 3, 4 succeed, then we're still learning very well. If one becomes 10x, if two become 5x, if, like that, they calculate.
Yeah.
And they've been doing very well, investors, angel investor, VC fund, PE fund.
Yeah.
So that has created a whole new climate in India of startups. So a lot of youngsters and corporate executives who give up corporate career, MBAs, people who give up very good jobs in global consulting firms like McKinsey and such firms and BCG and all, and they start their own companies. So this fear of failure has considerably reduced. Also, the availability of equity money. So failure was a big problem if you borrowed money.
Right.
And then the proceedings to recover money, etc., goes on, and one loses years in all that. So what is one getting now is risk capital. So investors are putting money in equity.
Right. Right. And so family offices are helping in this.
Family offices are very much active in that, very much.
So family offices are actually helping entrepreneurship in India.
So absolutely. So in fact, lot of ventures after the angel round, the next round is done by family offices.
Right.
Because the promoter may not yet be ready to go to a private equity funds, may not yet be organized enough.
Yeah.
And it may still be early enough stage where he needs more money, and the family offices fund them.
Right. Right.
So many of us from family offices, we have been active investors in startups.
Yeah. And work with entrepreneurs. So,
yes.
You've been an entrepreneur yourself, and, for, many years, and now you work with entrepreneurs through your family office. These entrepreneurs are younger than you. Is there anything that they teach you? Is there anything that you learn from younger entrepreneurs?
No, firstly, the energy they bring.
That is age-driven, Atul. I mean, that you can't do anything about. That is purely age. The energy.
So, no, I think it does matter, state of mind, that if we feel that, look, I can't do it,
Agreed.
then the ideas they bring, there are a lot of innovative ideas they bring.
Yeah.
And, that keeps our mind alert all the time.
Yeah.
When, like the various insurance companies, and I got a proposal from Echo Insurance, and, that we will do insurance only we'll do only digitally, only online.
Yeah.
And we'll focus on auto insurance and later on health. Now you suddenly get a young person who says, I will be very focused, only use digital medium, no agent network.
Yeah.
Now that was so interesting, so exciting. And we invested in the company. I joined the board of the company. And the professional approach, the focus, the ambition to succeed, that is all, one learns something out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, Is there any difference that you see in the entrepreneurs of your time and the entrepreneurs today in terms of their attitude towards business, in their attitude towards professionalism? Is there or is there not?
There is, of course. Firstly, they're in search of new ideas. They understand that they have to reward the shareholders. They have to be transparent. They have to engage with investors all the time. They have to work hard. They have to be honest,
Yeah,
because otherwise there is no future. And they have to continue to innovate all the time, both business model, technology, the way of doing business. They have to carry the team well. So earlier, I think there was some advantage to the children of business families. Today, we suddenly find that a young guy from nowhere with no roots in business of the family is able to succeed big time
yeah,
and become a role model. And there was no such business that one saw of father doing or grandfather doing it. No, nothing inherited.
yeah,
So I think they, in a way, it is tougher today that there is no such support system, but also easier because investors are available. They're willing to back you up if you have the right idea. You're willing to work hard to execute and succeed.
yeah,
If you're willing to build the team and carry them along.
yeah.
So I think we are in a new era, a very interesting phase.
Yeah.
And this is just the beginning.
That's wonderful to hear.
We
That's
have a
wonderful
lot
to
of
hear.
runway ahead, where we will continue to do great
Yeah,
as a startup economy, as a country. See, India has the advantage of talent.
right.
We have huge talent. Engineers, MBAs, chartered accountants, corporate executives, such a large pool of them.
Yeah,
Indians are hardworking. No matter where they are in the world, they are hardworking. So hard work is there, their ideas are there, and they're very willing to compromise and adjust.
in a good way.
And
In a good way. Compromise and
yeah,
adjust in a good way. Yeah,
yeah, compromise with the team, with
yeah,
understand, adjust to each other, and work together.
yeah, yeah.
And
No, and
earlier there was a time you used to find partners fighting with each other.
right.
Today the team, by and large, I find we continue to work together in the common interest.
Yeah, yeah. So, you do say that family offices have actually helped the startup world and the entrepreneurship in India. This is from inside the family office point of view. My last question to you is that how does a promoter decide when is the right time to set up a family office? Because investments or, investing in other businesses is just but one part of a family office. A family office is a large umbrella, and you're a big votary of family offices. So, a lot of promoters I speak with, a lot of family business owners I speak with, they say अभी तो हम तो बहुत छोटे हैं, अभी हम नहीं family office हम क्या करेंगे? So what is your view around family office? When is the right time for a business owner to start thinking about a family office?
So let me first start with the focus on investing and interest in investing. Now, what often people don't realize that they work hard in running their business, earn money, try to maximize that profit. Even senior corporate executives in the corporate world make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Salary and stock options, if you put together, this is a pretty handsome money they make.
Yeah.
So I would say no matter what level one is, whether one is a mid-level executive in a corporate, senior executive, small business, large business, corporate, one is to first understand the value of investing. When a corporate executive goes to the company and wants more money or change the job and get more money and focus only on his or her salary, what one does not realize is the money you have saved, you are putting in 5%, 6% bank fixed deposits.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there you're not bothered what you earn. So that doesn't matter. Let it not earn money. But I must only earn out of the business I run or the job I do. But what they don't realize is that we as Indians are very saving oriented.
Yes.
Now, India as a country is among the highest percentage of GDP in saving.
And that too in fixed deposits.
Yeah.
The exposure in the capital markets is very little.
Yeah. So it is, if this money is invested wisely in capital markets, in equity, last 20 years, the index has gone up 17 times.
Right.
And mutual funds, much more.
Yeah.
The blue chip stocks, if one has bought, even more.
Right.
So, if one first thing is one must decide that I am going to get good return out of my savings. That is the first decision, no matter what level one is. A businessman should not think my job is only to run business. But the money that is saved, you should earn properly and well. So one must decide to invest. That is the first thing. Now, if you want to invest, you need to learn the way you invest well. One must read something, one must pay some attention on it. One doesn't need to start buying individual stocks, but one can look at mutual funds, which are good, what return they've given in past, choose the right mutual fund.
Yeah.
So I'm saying family office can be even one person.
Right.
Like when I was running my business, my family office meant just one person full-time working on it all the time.
Right.
And then he'll coordinate with various mutual fund, various portfolio management companies, etc., and put up reports and notes, and I would then decide. I've been an equity investor since 1978. So it's been a long time, and I'm very, very happy that I did that. And I don't like fixed interest security, but I'm not saying one should not invest in fixed interest. One can balance depending on need of the family. But from one person, when the capital increases, one can have 2-3 people. One can appoint an investment advisor.
Right. Right.
We now have very well developed system of investment advisors, very credible. So have an investment advisor to guide you. So, and then choose wisely where to invest. I'm not saying one should just jump into investing in startups. It doesn't make sense to invest in 1 or 2 startups unless you know someone very well as a very dynamic person, and that's different. But you cannot have such concentration in very few, investments. It makes sense to diversify money into various avenues.
Yeah.
But as the capital goes on increasing, one can make it bigger and bigger, the family office, and treat like any other business.
Right.
And it can give very, very good return.
Right. Right.
In fact, it can give you a better return than a business.
No, so what I hear you say is that any time and every time is a right time to start a family office, because that's just a concept The reality is actually your attitude towards investing the money that you have saved. And if you have the right attitude, you will automatically realize that you need a family office. So you
Yeah,
have to first address the attitude, and the family office is then a result.
yeah, whether there is one person or 10 people. Why I'm saying at least one person, so that there is focus.
Right. Right.
If I'm only doing that, then my attention may not fully come in that. If there
Yeah.
at least one dedicated person into that, then you'll be interacting and paying attention on that.
Yeah.
Uh, Also, it's important to invest for long term. One should first principle not speculate.
Right.
Do not speculate. Do not speculate.
Right.
Trading is not profitable. It's a misconception. 99.9% people do not earn money out of trading.
Right. Right.
So one should not try to imitate some very successful trader. One should not do trading, no speculation. One cannot invest for 3 and 6 months. Keep in mind, the money that I can spare for 5 years, I'll put in equity. Money that I need after 1 or 2 years or 6 months, put in debt instruments.
Yeah.
Not bank fixed deposits. You can have liquid fund, you can have debt funds, tax-free bonds. So there can be various other avenues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are mutual funds,
Yeah.
which are balanced fund, which are debt fund, equity fund. One can choose as per one's requirement. But I would strongly recommend everybody, particularly business families for sure, they should run it as a very organized activity.
Yeah. Yeah. It
It
should.
is not anything less than a business in terms of returns.
Yeah. That your family office is also, you need to look at it as a separate business venture and look at the returns that you get from the family office.
And what
have
you
to
need most
diversify.
important is the attitude.
Is the attitude, and everything else flows from there.
You just keep cool mind when the market falls. You keep a cool mind and no need to keep looking at stock prices every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, one should not sell off when market is down and buy only when it is at the peak.
Yeah. No, so Atul, that's, I think, a good way to end this conversation, this whole business of attitude. Your attitude towards business started when you were 8 or 9 years old, and it has stood you in good stead for your life. And this is the attitude that you wish that others would have: the right attitude towards business, the right attitude towards customers, and the right attitude towards the money that you earn, whether from a salary or from a business.
Yeah, and the last point I want to make, Sonu, is
Yeah.
I'm never going to retire.
Good, good. I
There
think,
is no interest in retirement, and
Yeah.
one can, whatever years left in life, one can keep doing different things.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Have a diversified life as well as a diversified portfolio. Wonderful.
That's right.
Yeah. So thank you very much for your time. I have enjoyed the conversation. And I
Thank
do-
you so much, Sonu. Thank you so much. Always wonderful to talk to you. Such a pleasure.